Hello spooky friends, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Keisha and today I'm going to be giving you some fall recommendations. It is one of my favorite times of the year. Fall is truly the time where I come alive, and I have been seeing a lot of people do fall recommendation videos, and as a booktuber I do talk a lot about books and a lot about my favorite fall or spooky books. But I thought it might be fun to do a video where I include a couple of other things other than bookish things that are just some of my favorite fall things that make me feel cozy, things that might be a little spooky, but overall things that just make me really happy. So today we're going to talk about some movies and TV shows that I really enjoy, as well as books and also some food. So let's just go ahead and jump into it. If you want to go ahead and grab a cozy fall drink and a cozy fall blanket, then we'll go ahead and get started. So just in case any of you ask, I am surrounding myself with all of my favorite cozy things. So if there's anything you see behind me as far as decor or anything else, just let me know and I will tell you, or try my best to tell you, where I got any of these things from. But I did get my spooky mug from TJ Maxx, I think a year or two ago, and it is my favorite mug to bring out for the fall. Then I have this blanket on that is, I think I got it from Walmart a year or two ago, and it says give thanks on it, but it's just this really cute, like kind of navy blue with some teal blue, and then of course it has the pumpkins. Very cozy blanket that says give thanks. So technically I think it's more of a Thanksgiving throw, but it's my fall throw. That is hard to say, and I absolutely love it. And then I'm also wearing this sweater that I got from Target, and this is like the staple of the season. I have to give credit to Liv from Liv's Library, because she hauled this a couple months ago and I was like, okay, now I need to go haul it. So we both have this sweater. If you follow both of us, you have seen both of us in it at this point, but I love this sweater so much. It's so cozy and comfy and the perfect color and comfort for fall. So I actually want to start out with some movie and TV show recommendations. And I want to say that a lot of these are going to be more family friendly ones. Some of them won't be, but I'm a kid at heart. I still love cartoons. I still love family movies. I still love kid shows. So that is going to be a lot of my recommendations today, just because that is so much of who I am. So hopefully I'm able to introduce you to some things maybe you haven't heard of before, or maybe some things you haven't remembered for a really long time. I really pride myself in being somebody who is very nostalgic. I love things that are sentimental to me and to my childhood, so that's going to be a lot of these shows and movies. Some of them may not be, but just know there are going to be some like that, and these are ones that mean a lot to me. And like I said, maybe you'll find something new today. So first up, I feel like it is impossible for me to even do a fall recommendations video without mentioning one of my favorite movies of all time and one of my favorite books, and that is going to be Coraline. So Coraline, let me go ahead and show you the book. So Coraline is actually a middle grade horror novel that was written by Neil Gaiman, and it is one of my favorite middle grade spooky books. But I did actually watch the movie first, and for the longest time I thought that Tim Burton had directed this movie. But someone that you guys may not be as familiar with, because I feel like Tim Burton gets a lot of credit, is Henry Selick, and he does a lot of stop motion animation and just spooky movies and stuff like that, and Coraline is such a good one. So this is done in claymation, so if you don't like that, you may not like this as much, but I feel like this is such a good one, and I would really encourage you to give it a chance if you have the opportunity to, because it is so good. So if you don't already know about this story, this follows Coraline Jones, and Coraline has just moved into a new home in a new place with her family. She lives with her mom and dad, and honestly, she's a little bit bored. Her parents aren't paying her very much attention, and so she goes snooping around the house and ends up finding this really tiny door, and it's locked. Her mom tries to find the key to it and shows her there's nothing there, that actually there is a boarded up brick wall where it separates the apartments. So Coraline lives in this home. You can kind of see it back here, but she lives in this home that is like kind of like a duplex, but she lives in a flat with a bunch of other people. So they have their flat, and then you've got a couple different quirky characters that come into play in this story that she gets to meet along the way. But essentially one day, Coraline comes to this door and finds that it is not boarded up anymore and she can go through it. She goes to the other side and she finds that she has another mother and another father on the other side, and they seem a little bit more pleasant than her current ones. They're paying her more attention, they're giving her all the things that she wants and needs, and she just feels a little bit more at home. But there may be something a little more sinister lurking underneath. It is going to take all of Coraline's resourcefulness and bravery in order to get back home to her family. I cannot pitch this in the way that I want to. Like, I wish that I could say all the things that would make you pick it up, but just know this is one of my favorites. I did watch the movie first, and I don't care what order you do it in, but I feel like because the movie's my favorite, I don't know, it could go either way. I'll tell you why I still like this even though I read the book. But before I do that, let me say, this is the movie. This is the original novel. There's also a graphic novel, and then there's also an audiobook that if you read this novel with, I highly recommend that you listen to the audiobook while you read it, because the audio has these really creepy sounds. I'm not going to elaborate much on that, but please just know that it's worth it. So however you choose to consume this is totally up to you, but I would recommend obviously doing the audiobook with that book and then watching the movie, and then if you want to read the graphic novel, you can. If you want to watch the movie first, totally do that, but I will say there's a little bit of a difference between the book and the movie. And it's not a lot, but I don't know, I guess it is. If you read the book and you watch the movie, you may be annoyed, but I love the way that Henry Selick kind of took the story and ran with it and just kind of developed an even better story, in my opinion, than Neil Gaiman, which, I mean, I love Neil Gaiman, and I'm not saying that this isn't a great story, but the way that Henry Selick adapted it, I prefer versus this one. So just know that there's a couple of small differences. There's a little bit of a difference in timeline, and some parts are like a little bit different, but they're both so good, and they both are well deserving of all the love. So I definitely recommend picking up Coraline in some form of fashion this spooky season. These are great fall recommendations and just give me all the spooky vibes. The next movie that I would like to recommend is Scary Godmother's Halloween Spooktacular. This is a cartoon, and I used to watch it, I believe, on Boomerang as a kid, but I still absolutely love it. There's even a sequel. And something that I found out as an adult is it's actually based off of a book series that is the Scary Godmother series. I haven't read the books. I would love to someday, but I absolutely loved this cartoon. It is just so whimsical and so fun. There is some spooky elements, but I feel like as an adult, it's pretty manageable. But the story follows Hannah Marie, and Hannah Marie is a first-time trick-or-treater, but she is going out with her cousin, and her cousin is just annoying and mean and picks on her. So he's babysitting her, and he takes her out to trick-or-treat and ends up trying to play this cruel prank on her to scare her. So he takes her into this home and scares her. But then she runs into Scary Godmother in this home, and she goes into Scary Godmother's realm, which is the fright side. And Scary Godmother is having this big Halloween Spooktacular party with all of these different Halloween creatures, and some that you will be familiar with, some that may be new to you, but it is just such a fun time. And Hannah Marie kind of learns that monsters aren't always mean. Not all monsters are mean. And now she is going to team up with these monsters to get revenge on her mean cousin who pulled a prank on her. It's such a cute, just like fun family movie. So if you have kids, I highly recommend checking it out with them. I think it's actually on YouTube right now, and I'm not going to know where all these movies are, but I would recommend trying to find them if you can. But I believe I saw the entirety of this movie because it's only like an hour long on YouTube. So definitely check it out. It just gives me all the warm and cozy nostalgic vibes. It's just such a fun one to watch, especially during Halloween. Then we definitely have a classic. So I don't know how many of you guys out there grew up with Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen, but I absolutely loved them as a kid. I watched all of their movies. I saw like the You're Invited birthday party series that they did, and I was just obsessed with them. But one of their earlier movies when they were younger was Double Double Toil and Trouble. And you guys, this is such a fun, cozy one. I highly recommend checking it out. So you've got these twin sisters, obviously it's Mary-Kate and Ashley, and they go to visit their aunt, and their Aunt Sophia is like a little bit different now. Some things are going on. She seems a little evil, and they are trying to save their family. Their Aunt Sophia has this like moonstone thing. It has been so long since I've watched this, so sorry if I'm butchering the synopsis, but they have this moonstone, and they're having to get the moonstone from their aunt in order to save their family because their aunt seems to be evil now. There are some fun and quirky characters throughout this whole thing. You have Mr. N, you have Oscar, you just have so many fun characters that I absolutely fell in love with, and I think you will too. So if you're looking for a good, cozy fall movie, I think this is a really fun one to check out. There's witches and warlocks and fun creatures, so definitely a good one for this season. Then I also want to talk about The Little Vampire. And no, I'm not talking about the cartoon that's on Netflix. That is not the same, and I'm mad about it. Like, I am mad about it. Jonathan Lipnicki was in this movie, and he played this little boy. I believe his name, I had to write it down. It was Tony. Okay, so his name was Tony. And Tony's family moved to this new country and this new place, and he's trying to make friends, but he keeps having these nightmares and these dreams every night that vampires are coming back. He has these dreams about these vampires, about this vampire hunter, and he starts sharing this with his classmates, with his family, and everybody just thinks he's nuts. Then one day, the vampire from his dreams, Rudolph, shows up at his window, and he finds out that vampires are not what people believe, that vampires aren't trying to eat people for dinner. They actually want to become human people. So he is trying to help Rudolph and his family to become human. And this is just seriously one of the cutest movies. I absolutely love it. It is definitely good for Halloween, obviously, because there's vampires, but it just has really cozy fall vibes too. I especially love the ending, which I'm not going to tell you about, but like the village that they live in and just the people. It's just such a cozy movie. I grew up with this movie. It has a very special place in my heart, and if you haven't watched it, if you don't have FOMO right now, you should, because the fear of missing out for this is extreme. I don't know why people haven't seen this. I don't know why more people don't talk about it, but it is one of my absolute favorite movies from my childhood. Next, I want to talk about one of my all-time favorites, one of my comfort shows and comfort characters, and that's going to be Scooby-Doo. So I actually own a lot of Scooby-Doo DVDs. I even own, I don't know where it's at right now, but I own the live action Scooby-Doos, and I love the first movie more than the second of the live action, but Scooby-Doo is just great for this time of year. I grew up with Scooby-Doo. I've seen every Scooby-Doo episode ever out there, including like the original Scooby-Doo series. Obviously I've seen the ones that were closer to like my age group, like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo and What's New Scooby-Doo and Scooby-Doo Where Are You? But then you have the older ones where you've got the Harlem Globetrotters that come in. You've got the ones with Batman and Robin. You have those episodes where it's just like Scooby and Scrappy. You've got like the new Scooby-Doo shows and the new Scooby-Doo movies. Like, I love all of the Scooby-Doos, okay? Like, they are just superior. But some of my favorites that I own are Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School and Scooby-Doo and the Legend of the Vampire. So that's the one with the Hex Girls. I love these so much. The Ghoul School is like seriously an old classic. I don't know when it came out, but I know it's like, it's just one of the OGs. It's so good. There's also Scooby-Doo and the Reluctant Werewolf where Shaggy gets turned into a werewolf. I don't own that one, but it's also a favorite. Then I also have, I don't own Zombie Island, but that's a great one. I have Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders, Scooby-Doo and the Goblin King, which is one of my all-time favorites, and Scooby-Doo Abracadabra-Doo. Some of these are a little bit newer. I don't like the newest Scooby-Doo stuff, but like these are still really good. But my absolute favorite Scooby-Doo series of all time that I highly recommend if you've never seen it is The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo. So this follows Scooby, Shaggy, Daphne, and I think his name is Flim Flam. I was like trying to look. I think his name is Flim Flam, but there's like a new character in this one. And what it is Scooby and Shaggy accidentally let these 13 ghosts, like they're the world's 13 most dangerous ghosts that were trapped in this chest, and they accidentally let them out. And now it's up to them to find them and put them back in. So you've got them teaming up with Flim Flam, who it turns out he was like a thief at first. Like he's just this little kid who's stealing stuff, but he kind of joins their crew. And then you've got, oh my goodness, what is his name? I think Vincent Van Ghoul. Vincent Van Ghoul is what his name is. And he like talks to them through this crystal ball and kind of like gives them a heads up and helps them out throughout the way too. So this is just all of the spooky fall vibes that you want. So if you need to pick up any Scooby-Doo, this has to be it. 13 Ghosts is far superior. I know it's my opinion, but like it's far superior. And if you haven't ever seen the 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, oh my gosh, please pick it up this fall season. Then I want to talk about the Scream Team. So this is a movie, okay, first of all, Disney Channel original movies back in the day were where it's at. They had the best fall movies. I love them all. Obviously, Halloween Town has a special place in my heart. It's one of my favorites, but I feel like everybody talks about that one. So I wanted to talk about one that I don't hear anybody talk about very much, and that's the Scream Team. So you've got Ian and Claire, and Ian and Claire's grandfather just died. So they're going back to his hometown, and they're kind of like getting things settled, his estate settled and stuff. And they end up finding out this legend of Zachariah Cole. They have this festival that kind of surrounds him. And they find out that this town is kind of like an in-between place for ghosts. So you have all these restless ghosts in this, I guess it's kind of like a halfway house situation where these ghosts are restless, they have unfinished business, so they stay here and they're not able to pass on to heaven until like they sort out whatever they need to sort out. So they're dealing with the ghost of Zachariah Cole, which is a super scary ghost. It scared the crap out of me as a kid, but I love it so much as an adult. And then you've got these other friendly ghosts too that are like, there's so many actors and actresses in here that are notable. First of all, Claire is played by Kat Dennings, which if you love spooky stuff and you love Kat Dennings, I mean, why have you not seen this? But then you also have that lady, what is her name? Kathy Najimy, maybe? I don't ever know how to pronounce her last name. But the woman that played one of the Sanderson sisters in Hocus Pocus. So if that's not reason enough to watch it, it is such a good movie. And it is a family-friendly one. I mean, obviously it's a little spooky, but it's just a really good story. So, I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm not selling any of these good enough. But if you haven't seen The Scream Team, oh, it's just one of the best Disney Channel original movies ever, especially in the spooky genre. Okay, I only have 2 more movies left to talk about before we move on to TV shows. So, first I want to talk about The Book of Life. Now, this movie is highly underrated in my opinion. This movie came out before Coco, and when Coco came out, I was like, this sounds so similar to The Book of Life, so I was a little bit bitter because The Book of Life has my whole entire heart. My husband and I love this movie, and it is just the sweetest love story and the sweetest family story ever. So if you haven't seen The Book of Life and you're interested in like Dia de los Muertos and a good family story, then let me tell you a little bit about this one. So the story follows Manolo, Joaquin, and Maria, and they all grew up together. They are childhood best friends, and now they've been separated into adulthood. So Maria ended up having to be sent off to Europe, and Manolo has trained to be a bullfighter, but he also loves music. And then Joaquin went off to the military. Now they're all coming back together, and Manolo and Joaquin have always loved Maria, and so they kind of fight over her, like who's gonna get her. And then you have these 2 deities, and I don't remember who they are if they have names, but there are these 2 deities that end up making a bet on which one of them out of Joaquin and Manolo is going to win over Maria. And one of them plays a little dirty, and Manolo ends up dying and going to the land of the remembered. Guys, this movie is so stinking beautiful. I wish there was like a big picture of the land of the remembered on the back. But anyways, so you've got Manolo, now he's dead, and he's like, oh no, like, because obviously, I feel like it's obvious you've got like one of them that's better than the other, and Manolo is meant to be with Maria, like he's just meant to be. And so now you've got like the deity that was bad saying, if you complete all these tasks, then, you know, like this is your way. He's trying to complete all these tasks to get back home to Maria, like to come back to life and get to Maria. But he finds members of his family there along the way, and you guys, this story, like, it makes me want to cry. Like, just watching the trailer for this again to kind of refresh my memory on it, because it's been so long since I've seen it, made me tear up. The music is good, the story is good, and this story is just, oh my gosh, it's so stinking good. So whether you're watching this in October or in November for Dia de los Muertos, I highly recommend it. It is so good. It does have a lot of notable actors and actresses in here. You've got Joaquin, which I think he is played by Channing Tatum. And then you have Diego Luna, Zoe Saldana, Guillermo del Toro. Who else is in here? I wrote down some because there's so many notable. Oh, Gabriel Iglesias. You've got Ice Cube and Ron, I don't even know how to say that, Perlonda. I wrote these down because I was trying to make y'all watch this movie. But there's a lot of notable actors and actresses in this one, so I highly encourage you to pick this one up. And my last recommendation, and one of my absolute favorite movies from my childhood, one that gives me all the warm, cozy feelings, is When Casper Meets Wendy. Now, most of you are probably familiar with the Casper movie, the original movie that has like the original Casper story. You've got his brothers, you've got the love story and all that. But When Casper Meets Wendy is, I don't know. Like, I know they're both separate movies and they're own good in their own respects. But let me tell you that When Casper Meets Wendy is the movie of my childhood, so it's probably the Casper movie that I prefer, which I know is such a controversial statement, but it's so good. And it was Hilary Duff's debut, I'm pretty sure, into like the film world. And she's just so cute. So Hilary Duff plays Wendy, and she meets Casper, and there's like this evil warlock that they're trying to stop. And then Wendy finds out she's a witch, and she's got these witch aunts. There's 3 of them, and they're always into trouble. And you've got Casper's brothers that are coming in, and they're like, I remember one part of the movie is like they go into, like they possess human bodies to try to like swoon Wendy's aunts. And oh my gosh, like it is just such a good fall and Halloween movie. If you've never seen When Casper Meets Wendy, I really don't know where you can find it. I need to find it myself because honestly, I don't own it, and I don't know why, and I don't know how I can get my hands on it, but it's one of the best movies I've ever seen in my entire life. I know that that's nostalgia speaking. I know that everybody won't feel the same way, but just know like that movie has such a special place in my heart, and it is probably my top recommendation of all the movies that I've mentioned today. Let's take a little bit of a break before I jump into TV shows. And I know, like I mentioned Scooby-Doo, and that was a show, but I do have some more. But let's take a little bit of break from film and talk about some books. First, I'll start out with adult and young adult books. So I only have 3 to recommend to you. But the first one that I want to recommend is Curse the Day by Annabel Chase. I picked this book up last year, and I think a few years ago on Darling Desi's channel, she had talked about this book, and that's originally where I heard about it from. But since then, I haven't heard anybody talk about this. And this, I feel like, was before I really knew anything about cozy mysteries, but this is a spellbound paranormal cozy mystery. And now I know everybody's reading them. So I love that I kind of knew about this one a little bit sooner, and I'm really excited to share it with you today. So I only got about halfway through last year because it was the end of October, and once it's past Halloween, it's hard for me to keep in that spirit of reading things like this. So I'm actually planning to finish this one this year. But Curse the Day is this story about this woman named Emma Hart. And Emma Hart is this lawyer, and she's honestly had a string of bad luck throughout her whole life. Now she's on her way to a client, but she ends up having to stop because she sees what she thinks is somebody trying to jump off a cliff, but it turns out being an angel, and the angel leads her into this town that is full of supernatural creatures. And it comes to find out that the town is cursed and none of them can leave, so they're all kind of caught in time here. And they can't leave because somebody set a curse on this town. And now, I mean, of all times for Emma to find out she's a witch, she's found out that she's a witch, and now she is trapped in this town too. Not only that, but there is a murderer on the loose, and the town's public defender has recently been murdered. So now, obviously, she's a lawyer. She's kind of taking that place while she's in the town, and also playing the role of a sleuth, trying to figure out who the murderer is. And also, there's a little bit of a romance in here as well, and I just absolutely love this book. Like I said, I haven't finished it yet, and I'm planning on finishing it this spooky season, but it's one I had to start out recommending because it just gives me all of the cozy vibes. When I started reading it and kind of getting into the story, it gave me vibes of like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but not so much a teenage witch, just kind of Sabrina vibes. And it also gave me Halloween Town vibes because, you know, when you have the Halloween Town movie and there's that one, I don't know if it's the original movie or if it's the second movie. Maybe it's the original movie. Yeah, the original movie. So they can't leave Halloween Town at one point in time. So I felt like this kind of reminded me of that when you have this town of supernatural creatures and now they're cursed and they can't leave. So it gave me all those vibes, but like in an adult book. And guys, this is just so good. So if you are getting into cozy mysteries, or even if you're not, like I had not been reading any cozies. I'd never read any cozies before I picked this one up. And it's just so good. And I'm very excited to finish this one this year. Next up, I have a cozy fall romance. I actually don't know that it's set in fall, but it's paranormal, so it's gonna count. And that is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. If you are not new to my channel, then you have already heard me rant and rave about this book so many times because it is one of my favorite books that I've read this year. But if you are new to my channel, let me introduce you to one of my favorite books of the year. So this book follows Florence Day, and Florence Day is a ghostwriter for a popular author called Ann Nichols. And Florence has kind of had, again, a string of bad luck, just like in the last one, but it seems to be with romance with her. So she is now convinced that true love is not a thing, it's dead, and she doesn't want to write any more romance books as Ann Nichols. She wants to write a story about what she's experiencing in her love life, more or less. So she goes to meet with her editor to tell him about all of this. It's not going well, and not to mention her dad ends up passing away. And one thing about Florence that's really unique is that her family owns a funeral home, and her dad owns a funeral home, and she's doing her like practice of ghostwriting and all of this stuff up north, I think around New York maybe. I know it's up north, but she ends up having to go back home. I think it's in one of the Carolinas, but it's southern, which I love as a southerner, to her dad's funeral. And so like I said, her dad owns the funeral home, her family does, so she's going back to the family business, but now they're having a funeral for her dad. And also, while she's there, she's preparing for this funeral, and then a ghost shows up. And I'm not going to tell you who the ghost is. It does tell you on the back of the book, but I feel like I'm not going to tell you because there's that element of surprise there. So that adds another element to the story where Florence can see ghosts. And she shared this gift with her father. They are the only two people in their family that could see ghosts. And Florence kind of got away. The reason she moved away from home is now she's in like busy New York City. She's ghostwriting, and she can kind of ignore the ghosts around her a little bit more easily. But now that she's back home, this ghost shows up and a romance ensues from there. So I will just say that this book completely took me by surprise. I don't read a lot of romance books, and this one was just hands down probably one of the best romances that I've ever read. It was so cozy and quirky and fun. There was a little bit of smut, and those of you who know me know that I don't do smut, but I was able to handle it here. It wasn't like an overabundance. I felt like it was more like, it wasn't necessarily open door level smut, though it was like open door. It was more like a cracked door, and I can deal with that. I thought it was so sweet. And like I said, it's very quirky. There's a lot of really quirky things in here that some people may be like, oh, that's not realistic, but like it's totally me, and I absolutely loved it. So I highly recommend checking this out. It is just, it's so good. And there was even a twist at the end that I didn't see coming. Like one thing I kind of assumed was going to happen, and then the other thing I was like, what? It was just so good. It made me laugh, it made me cry, and I highly recommend if you are looking for a good cozy romance this fall, look no further than The Dead Romantics. Next, I have The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert. This is a young adult fantasy novel, which, shocker, yes, I'm recommending a fantasy. I don't read a lot of these, but this is one of the first books that I read when I was coming into this book community online, and I love it. It's really good. I still haven't finished or started The Night Country, which is the second book in this duology, but this one is so good. It is a kind of more fairy tale type of fantasy, but it's been a while since I have revisited it, so let me go ahead and read you the synopsis. 17-year-old Alice Proserpine and her mother have spent most of Alice's life on the road, always a step ahead of the uncanny bad luck biting at their heels. But when Alice's grandmother, the reclusive author of a book of pitch-dark fairy tales, dies alone on her estate, the Hazelwood, Alice learns how bad her luck can really get. Her mother is stolen away by a figure who claims to come from the cruel supernatural world where her grandmother's stories are set. Alice's only lead is the message her mother left behind: stay away from the Hazelwood. Alice has long steered clear of her grandmother's cultish fans, but now she has no choice but to ally with her classmate and fairy tale superfan Ellery Finch, who may have his own reasons for wanting to help her. To find her mother, Alice must venture first to the Hazelwood and then into the world where her grandmother's tales began, and where she might discover why her own story went so wrong. I want to reread this. Like, just talking about it, I want to reread this. So if you don't venture into fantasy much, just know that as someone who, one, does not like a lot of fantasy, and two, doesn't really like fairy tales, really enjoyed this dark fairy tale fantasy story. It is very fall. It is very just like, it gives me all of the autumn vibes for this season, honestly, and this cover screams fall to me. So I don't know how to pitch this to you. It was 4 out of 5 stars for me. I forgot to tell y'all, those other 2 books are going to be 5 stars, so just know that. But this one, it's a 4 out of 5 star rating for me, and it is a book that still to this day, I remember the feelings I had when I read it. So if you're looking for a little bit darker of a cozy autumn read, dark and cozy don't go together. Either way, this is good for this season. Next, I have a couple of middle grades. So first, I want to talk about City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This is the first book in the Cassidy Blake trilogy. This is a story about Cassidy Blake, and Cassidy's parents are ghost hunters, or they have this TV show where they go to the world's most haunted places. And so in this book, they go to Edinburgh, Scotland. And what's funny about Cassie's parents is that they are ghost hunters, and they go to all these haunted places and they're filming and everything. They can't really see ghosts, but Cassidy can. And her parents don't know she can see ghosts, but she had this near-death experience, And not only is she now able to see through the veil or see ghosts, she also has a ghost best friend named Jacob, and I love him so much. He kind of helped save her, and it's just the sweetest story. I would recommend, if you're going to check this book out, to get the paperbacks, because in the back you've got pictures from Edinburgh, Scotland, of all the different places that Cassidy visits while she's there, and I think that just adds an element to the story. So anyways, that's kind of the gist of what the series is about. They go to different haunted cities. This one's set in Edinburgh. There's another one that's set in Paris, France. There's in the catacombs, I think. And then the other one is set in New Orleans. So I just think this is so spooky and great for fall. So if you're looking for a little bit more of a paranormal, I don't want to say like cozy, because like clearly this isn't cozy. But I mean, I think it's cozy because I like spooky stuff, but it's a little bit spooky. So just know this is a good one, and one that I recommend for all ages. Then I have the Small Spaces series by Katherine Arden. There are 4 books in this series. The last one just came out. I read it and loved it, and it was very bittersweet. But each of those 4 books is set in a different season, and this first one is set during the fall, and it literally exudes all of the fall vibes. So you follow these 3 kids, Ollie, Coco, and Brian. They are best friends, and it starts out with Ollie, and Ollie is saving this book from this woman who's trying to throw it away because Ollie loves books. And I mean, girl, I do too. I'd be saving that book also. So she saves this book and she reads it, and it's a story called Small Spaces, and she finds out about these 2 brothers and some things that happened to them on this farm. And then, conveniently enough, Ollie and her classmates are going on a field trip to the farm that she just read about in this book. So they're going to this farm. There are a bunch of creepy scarecrows. There is obviously, like this farm, a pumpkin patch, all the fun things. There's corn. They have to go through the corn for some stuff. Like, I don't know if it's a corn maze or if they're just going through the corn. Either way. And there's a creepy character called the Smiling Man. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, I definitely encourage you to check it out. There are paranormal elements in this, and there are lots of fall elements in this. So I feel like this book just really embodies fall. And lastly, I have 3 graphic novel recommendations. So if you want something more cozy, I would recommend Garlic and the Vampire by Bree Paulsen. This follows our main character, Garlic, and Garlic is this very anxious, kind of human-like vegetable. Garlic lives in this garden with all these other human-like vegetables, where she tends to the garden of vegetables that are not human-like, which seems kind of cannibalistic, but it's very cozy. So you've got Witch Agnes that has kind of brought these vegetables to life. Garlic is very anxious about everything in life, and honestly, I'm Garlic. Let me just tell you, if you read this book, just think of me because I'm Garlic. But Garlic ends up having to be encouraged by her friend Carrot because she kind of gets put on the spot. There's this really creepy house up on a hill, and everyone seems to think that a vampire has moved into this castle, and so they have recruited Garlic to go and check it out because garlic and vampires don't mix. So Garlic is having to be encouraged by her friend Carrot, whom I love so much. There are so many friends in my life that I would consider to be carrots for me. So good. But so yeah, she has to kind of be brave and venture out to this castle and figure out this whole vampire situation. This is such a cozy book. Like, just look at the graphics. Just look at them. So cozy. Oh my gosh. Like, I can't even. If you're looking for a cute, cozy fall read, this is it. Then, if you want one that's not like, I feel like it's a mix of cozy and spooky, but more probably cozy, I have The OK Witch by Emma Steinkellner. This is so stinking good, you guys. It gives me like Halloween Town vibes, Salem Witch Trial vibes. I don't even know what else. It's just so good. So this is about a girl named Moth. She is 13 years old, and she has just found out that she is a witch, which is great because she's always wanted to be a witch. She loves witchy things, and now she's found out that she is one, but her mother has kept this secret from her for all these years because the townspeople here don't have a great history with witches. There is a lot of humor and a lot of heart in the story. There's also a talking cat named Laszlo, and I love him so much. I seriously just think this is probably one of my favorite graphic novels of all time. The artwork in here is some of my favorite. There's also a second book in this series also. It's The OK Witch and the Hungry Shadow, but highly recommend checking this one out. Like I said, it just gives me all of like, it is cozy. It is spooky, but it's cozy. So I guess it's kind of still cozy, but it's like in the middle. I don't know. It's just so good, and I highly recommend checking it out. It is one of my absolute favorites. And lastly, I have a spookier graphic novel recommendation, and that is The Ghoul Next Door by Cullen Bunn. This is also one of my all-time favorite graphic novels. I'm going to go ahead and read the synopsis of this one just because I feel like it'll explain it better than I can because I kind of explain it in a weird way. But I'm so glad that I found this randomly in a bookstore one day, let me just tell you. So it says 11-year-old Gray lives in the legend-haunted New England town of Anders Landing, and he can't help but feel like a pair of eyes are watching his every move. He even starts to discover odd, gruesome gifts left for him, like little bits and pieces taken from the graveyard. Items like art carved from bones or jewelry made from, hopefully not human, remains. Soon Gray is caught up in something bigger than he could have ever imagined. He finds himself drawn into a strange mystery involving a race of reclusive subterranean creatures, ghouls, the eaters of the dead. Turns out his secret admirer is a ghoul named Lavinia. Gray and Lavinia prove that friendship can go beyond the grave. The only problem is their friendship breaks traditions, and the punishment is a fate far worse than death. You guys, you need to read this book. First of all, look at this beautiful artwork. This is a story that is definitely very spooky at times, but it is also a really sweet story of friendship. And I just don't know how to explain the story because it is very creepy and scary at times. But like I said, it also gives you the warm, cozy fuzzies, whatever it's called. Warm fuzzies, cozy well, you know what I'm talking about. It just gives you all of those cozy vibes because of the friendship in the story, and it makes me so stinking happy. So if you're like me and you need a good dose of spooky and a good dose of like warm, cozy, friendly vibes, this is definitely a good recommendation. And I actually just found out there's a second book that came out in this series, and I'm so excited for that one too. I plan on reading it this fall. Okay, we're gonna jump back into TV shows real quick. So the first one that I want to talk about that I never hear anybody talking about, and I don't know why, so you guys need to get on it. That is The Good Witch, or I think it's just called Good Witch. And this is a Hallmark show. And I don't watch a lot of Hallmark stuff, but let me tell y'all, this is worth it. You've got Cassie Nightingale, who is our main character, and she lives in this cozy New England town, like all the Hallmark vibes, love it so much. Cassie owns this shop called Bell Book and Candle, and so another cozy element. She is also one of those people, she makes like herbs and teas to help with like healing or to help like get rid of a headache or when you're sick or stuff like that. So the town has really grown to trust Cassie. One day, this new doctor moves in because the old doctor's not there anymore. I wonder why, if Cassie is just like able to help everybody. But this new doctor moves in. He and Cassie are gonna have this little romance that I love so much. I love it so much. And there's also Bailey Madison plays in this as Cassie's daughter. And Cassie has like these premonitions, and Bailey Madison's character also has these like premonitions and stuff where they just kind of can sense when something's gonna happen. And yeah, there's just, I'm butchering the synopsis, but it's a cozy Hallmark show set in a small New England town. It's some of it set during the fall, not all of it, but you've got like a good witch, and it's not super witchy. So if you're not into like really witchy things, it's very light on the witchy, and it's very, very cozy. So if you haven't ever seen The Good Witch, I think there's like 7 seasons out. I haven't yet made it through all 7 seasons. I was following the show when it first came out, and then I got behind, and now I've got to catch up. But it's literally one of the coziest shows. I've been saying Good Witch is kind of like my Gilmore Girls. I know that everybody loves Gilmore Girls this time of year. Good Witch is my Gilmore Girls. Next, I want to talk about a cartoon, and it's actually based off of a book that I own. And the book is Bunnicula by Deborah and James Howe. This is the first book in the Bunnicula series, but it follows our main characters, Chester, Harold, and Bunnicula. Chester's the cat, Harold's the dog, and Chester kind of narrates the whole thing. But Chester and Harold are kind of taken aback by this new bunny that moves into their home. It's the new pet. And Chester is convinced that Bunnicula is actually a vampire. So that is the book. And then there's a TV show that is so cute and just takes it off the rails. Love it so much. I used to watch this on the Boomerang app. I used to have like a subscription to Boomerang on my Roku TV, but now I don't. I think you can watch it on Amazon Prime though, maybe, but it's like a 30-minute, like it's a TV series, and each episode is 30 minutes, and it's so fun. It just makes me laugh, and I love it so much. So if you're looking for a good, like kind of Halloween-y, cute cartoon, I highly recommend checking out Bunnicula. Next, I want to talk about Ghosts. So this is a show that was originally a like BBC show, and now they brought it to America. And you've got the girl, I never remember her name. She's been in a lot. I think she was in iZombie. She was the main girl in iZombie, but she plays our main character, and her husband move into this old home that she inherited, and they want to take this home and turn it into an Airbnb. But as they're there, the main character ends up hitting her head, and now she can see ghosts, and she can see that all these different ghosts live in this house. And you guys, I love this show so much. I think it's on Paramount Plus. I don't know if it moved or not, but it was on Paramount Plus. So if you have that, you guys, you have ghosts from like every era of life. You've got a Viking ghost, you've got an American Revolution ghost, you've got a little Boy Scout ghost, you've got a ghost from the 90s who died without pants on, you've got like this Victorian ghost, you've got all, like a hippie ghost, all the ghosts, you've got them all. And they don't want her to open Airbnb, trying to convince her not to, but it's just like life with these ghosts, okay? So you've got the couple and you've got the ghost. The wife can see the ghost, the husband can't. It is such a fun time. It is both humorous and heartwarming at the same time. I literally both laugh and cry in every episode. I never thought I could love a show so much. It's been so long since I've loved a good show like this. And so it is like a 30-minute episode sitcom type deal. But if you haven't seen Ghost, I really recommend checking it out. The 3rd season just came out, so I'm going to be catching up with that and watching it with my husband. But you guys, it's seriously one of the best shows I've ever seen. And honestly, you can watch it any time of year, but since it's Ghost and it's fall, I feel like it was just a good fit. Next, I want to talk about Ghost Whisperer, which stars Jennifer Love Hewitt. I used to own all of these on DVD. I don't anymore, but I love Ghost Whisperer. That is really what got me into kind of like paranormal, like spooky, fun stuff like that. And this is a show about this woman who can see ghosts, and it's her job to help them cross over to the other side. But you also have kind of her story where her dad passed away all these years ago or went missing or something. She never really knew what happened to her dad, and she's trying to find her dad. So like as she's doing all these things with all these other ghosts, she's always hoping to find a glimpse of her dad somewhere. And she also owns this really cute shop, or either that or her friend owns the shop. It's been a while since they're in the shop a lot. I think she owns the shop, but it's one of those cozy, like kind of like Good Witch, but more, it does get darker at times because you do have some like scarier ghosts that appear more scary at first until they get calmed and like can move on. But man, such a good series. It didn't end very well. Like they definitely ended the series in not a great spot. So if you don't like cliffhangers, it's probably not the best. But I like each episode on its own for what it is. So if that sounds at all interesting, definitely check that one out too. And then lastly, I want to talk about Charmed, which I did not watch in my childhood. I didn't watch it till I was an adult. But you guys, I was totally missing out on this show. And I didn't really decide to watch it until they created like a remake, which I haven't watched and I'm not interested in it because the original is so much better. But you've got these 3 sisters and they are the charmed ones, and they find out they're witches, and it's like their destiny to like protect the innocents. So you've got these little sitcom episodes where each episode they're facing a different demon or ghost or whatever they're facing at the time. And if you like things like movies like Practical Magic or anything like that, I definitely think you'd like Charmed. But it's just such a cozy show. But it also, like, oh my gosh, their house is so cozy. Like, everything's so cozy. Oh my gosh, it's so good. If you like the subtle witchy shows, but then, like, obviously there's some episodes where it gets a little scary because they're, like, fighting off demons and other stuff like that. It's kind of a mix. But it's so good for fall. It's just so good. So if you haven't ever seen Charmed, I would recommend that one too. I feel like this recommendations video is just all over the place, but we do have a few more things, just food. It's food and drink. I have to recommend these things to you. A lot of them are new to me, but I love pumpkin. Pumpkin everything. So most of these are going to be pumpkin. Just know that going in, but I do have a few food items to recommend as we wrap up this video. First of all, you saw me drinking something in this cup at the beginning of the video. So I'll go ahead and share what that is. So you can get this at Walmart. It's Great Value brand, and it's amazing for being great value. Like, y'all can't knock Great Value, I'm just saying. This is pumpkin spice chai latte mix, okay? This tip is so good. I love powdered chai mixes. I usually get like the Oregon chai latte mixes, but I have found so many that I love, and this one is pumpkin spice chai, and I feel like chai and pumpkin go together so well. So I will definitely say, if you like pumpkin and you like chai, definitely check out this chai latte mix from Walmart. Also from Walmart, I'd like to recommend this Pillsbury quick bread and muffin mix. It's pumpkin. So I don't make bread with it, but I do make pumpkin muffins with it. And I will have to also give credit to Liv from Liv's Library for this, because I saw her using this And I thought, okay, let me make this because I always want pumpkin muffins, but I don't always want to go through the whole process of making them. And this mix is actually really good. When I made it, the muffins stayed really moist throughout like the few days that we ate them. I do think that next time I would like to make some kind of like cinnamon sugar crumble to go on top, or like have an icing, even though they're not cupcakes, but I definitely think these are really good. So if you haven't tried this quick bread mix, head to your local Walmart and get some because it is definitely good for like an easy muffin or bread maker. And the last thing that I have from Walmart is something that I just found this season. And I'm obsessed. Like, this is Toblerone is like my all-time favorite candy, but this might have just beat that, okay? So this is Fannie Mae Milk Chocolate Pumpkin Pie Spice Mini Pixies. So basically, this is like chocolate turtles, but pumpkin. So it's pumpkin pie spice caramel and pecans covered in milk chocolate. The only thing that could make this better is if it was dark chocolate. But y'all, literally, when I first bit into these, I was like, are you kidding me? These are my new favorite chocolates. So they're individually wrapped, and you can't really see it, but they're kind of shaped like pumpkins. They're so good. If you love chocolate like me and pumpkin, and you don't mind pecans, because I know some people don't like nuts, guys, these are just so good. Like, I want to eat the whole bag right now. Okay, then I want to recommend from Trader Joe's, which I never get to go to Trader Joe's, and I found these this year when I went. This is pumpkin spice granola bark. Y'all, these are, let me show you what they look like. These are so freaking good. Can y'all tell I like pumpkin? I like pumpkin, but this is what they look like. Oh, they smell amazing. They're so stinking good. So it's pumpkin spice flavored granola layered with dark chocolate and topped with toasted pumpkin seeds. But it has like, what is that stuff called? Quinoa. So it's got like quinoa in it, and it's got pumpkin seeds and maple syrup and almonds, vanilla extract, cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, clove, all of the good fall things. So if you have not been to Trader Joe's and tried the organic pumpkin spice granola bark, this is a great snack. Goes great with coffee. Highly recommend checking it out too. Lastly, I decided to recommend you something that was not pumpkin. So if you guys don't already know, I love tea. Not as much as I love books, but I do own a heck of a lot of teas. So one of my favorite teas this time of year, I obviously love ones with notes of cinnamon, apple, cloves. Star anise is one of my favorite things. But if you are like me and you have allergies, seasonal allergies going into new seasons, sometimes it's really good to have a tea that is good for that. And I find that David's Tea's ginger honey tea works really well for me if I'm like transitioning into the fall season or feel a little stuffy. It always makes me feel better. So it has ginger and lemongrass, honey crystals, just different forms of ginger and honey specifically, but it's very, very good. So if you are a tea person like me, I'm a loose leaf tea girl. I don't like tea bags as much because when you put things in tea bags, they have to be like ground up more like the tea leaves and stuff do and whatever's in there, so it loses some of its flavor. So I always like to get loose leaf tea, and then you can put it in a tea bag to steep it if you want, or you know, you can steep it with a steeper or whatever you want to do. But I love loose leaf tea, and David's Tea has some of the best. And like I said, ginger honey is one of the best ones for fall, especially for allergy season. Okay, y'all, we have finally made it through this video. I feel like I've been sitting here for hours, and I probably have, so I'm sure this is going to be a lot to edit, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed this and have enjoyed learning about some of my favorite fall things. I hope that I was able to introduce you to some cozy and spooky fall things that maybe you hadn't heard of before, or maybe I just helped remind you about some things that you haven't heard about in years. Obviously, I'm very nostalgic in many parts of my life, and fall is one of those times where I just remember all of the things that I grew up with, all the movies, the TV shows, the books, and I hope today that you were able to find something fitting for you this fall season. If you've made it this far in the video, I would love it so much if you would leave me a fall leaf emoji just so I know you made it this far. And let me know if any of these are new to you or if any of these are also your favorites. And if you'd like to recommend me anything that you think I might enjoy this fall season, I would love to know. I always love chatting with you guys down in the comments. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in my next video. Bye, friends.